Hi, my name is Ronald Richardson III.
And hi, my name is Carrington J.L. Richardson. Thank you for joining us on Promise and Me Unleashed for its second anniversary.
Hey, Karen, today's is Thanksgiving, and I am thankful for a house, food, the earth, and my family. What are you thankful for?
Well, Ronald, I'm thankful for my house, my family, my friends, and my health. In recognition of the second anniversary, let's look back at this year's conversations.
But first, we'll be performing today.
I love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me. All my life, I've been held in your name. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire and darkest nights. You are close like no other. I know you as a father. I know you as a friend. And I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. In every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after me. Your goodness is running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after me. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. In every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Promise and Me Unleashed for our second anniversary. I first want to say thank you to my co-hosts, the sweet Carrington Richardson and Ronald Richardson III. I also want to thank them for that wonderful performance, The Goodness of God. And what better time than Thanksgiving to be thankful for the goodness of God, allowing us to see this Thanksgiving and our second anniversary. As they mentioned, tonight's conversation will be highlighting the conversations that we've enjoyed all year long. I want to say thank you to each and every guest who came on just to have a conversation with us that I hope has encouraged, uplifted, and also ignited the promise in you. And with that, I also want to thank our viewers, you, for tuning in for these conversations and that your life has been enriched by the stories that have been told. We look forward to you joining us all year 2023 as we continue to share more uplifting conversations. So tonight is just a snapshot, as I said, of the conversations that you may have heard, or you'll want to continue to tune in to hear the rest of the conversation. So we start tonight with to have and to hold on. And please continue and watch to the end as Ronald Richardson III will come back and give us our closing anniversary selection. So I want to thank you in advance for tuning in and for joining us on Promise in Me Unleashed.
In one word, how would you describe your marriage?
In my opinion, we're like a partnership. We work well together. When we're on one accord, we get things done. It could be our goals or whatever. We work well together as a team.
Yeah, if I could add to that, I agree with him. We are a team, and we come together with our different problems, and we brainstorm how we want to tackle them. And it could be anything with, like, finances, children, grandchildren, the dog. We just come together and be like, okay, how are we going to handle this? What are we going to do? And we try to put things in strategic order so that we're productive. And I don't know why we're like that, but it works. So that's what we do.
Just being on one accord.
Genuineness. Honesty.
Okay.
So, I just feel like he's a very honest person, and I can elaborate on that if you like. Because when I first met this guy here, I was in college, and I think for me it was love at first sight, and for him I don't think he was thinking iota about me. So I think that for me, I don't know if it's a feminine part of us that does this or if it's just me personally, but because I felt the love, I just wanted him to feel the same thing that I was feeling. Didn't feel the same thing, and he was honest enough to say that to me. I think you're a beautiful person. I like you, but I don't love you. And as much as it hurt me on the inside, I had to live with that until the day that he told me that he loved me. Then it felt so good, and I know that to me says everything about who he is. Because as a female, guys tell you what they want, what they know we want to hear, and then they're done with you. But it was the opposite with him. He didn't tell me what I want to hear. He told me what he felt, and then later on, when he feels what I was feeling, he told me the truth, and that's great. That's honesty right there.
Would you like me to go first?
Yes, you go first.
For me, I would say the one word that describes us is durable. Durable because marriages change or are supposed to change with the people. So if the marriage is durable, it can withstand the tests and trials and everything else in between. So and thus far we've been stretched a lot. So having 4 kids and being caretakers and caregivers and just a lot of the various things that we dealt with in the past 8 years as far as our marriage, durable came to mind when if that's one word I had to describe it for me.
Okay, so my word was unconventional, because the way we came together, the way we started, having our first child out of wedlock, and just everything about us was just not sort of quote unquote by the book. And even I say by the book, but I mean even for myself, like it wasn't the way that I wanted it to go. But then we had like 4 kids in the span of like 5 years. Like
Yes.
it was fast. Like it was just really fast.
Yes.
And so a lot of what we did and how we came together and sort of even how we started was just not the usual. Like we haven't had any married time without anyone living in our house. There's either been a child or a family member or more children. It's never been just us. So I say unconventional for that reason.
Okay, take the hyphenation out. Soulmate.
I had a tough time. There's a bunch of words that I had. And so the one word that I came up with is faith. That's what I came up with. Because, so this will get into more, the reason why I said faith is because there's other words that it encompasses, such as compromise, humility, understanding, all those words, because marriage is both a spiritual thing and a legal thing. And so the two of those come together, and that's what I came up with.
Yes.
I would say it's work. And the reason why I say work is because it's very, very important. As we're doing the same thing in our relationship with the Lord, we're working to get better and better, to have a close relationship with Him, to get to know Him. We do that through word. We do that through our prayer time. We do that in fellowshipping and communing with Him. So that's the same thing you want to do with your mate. You want to work to get better to know them. And the only way you can do that is commune with them, fellowship with them, and get to know them. And so that's why I say it's work. When I say work, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because when we're on our natural jobs, we're working to do better. We're working to get recognized. We're working for those promotions. So if we can do that on our jobs, or we can do that in other relationships, we definitely would want to do it in our marriage.
I would say sacrifice, because marriage is a sacrifice. It's about you sacrifice, a lot of self-sacrificing and taking yourself out of the picture and working to become one as a couple. And we talked about having the Lord in the middle and keeping Him in the center. I think that's where the sacrifice comes, because a lot of times you want to put yourself in the center and put the focus on you, and you have to back away and sacrifice that position and say, Lord, I want you to be in the center.
How do you keep the spice in and the mice out of your marriage?
Yeah, I got some. Just wearing high heels, 90s.
Okay, so what he means is what works for us may not work for other couples, and so I think it has to do with where you're at in your marriage. So what you could do in your 20s, you can't do in your 50s or 60s.
I started, going to see my doctor and talking with my doctor about what's going on, and he decided to run some tests. And come to find out, he told me I was diabetic. Now, for years, I've known that I was borderline. Mm-hmm. And so, when they tell you that you're borderline, I tell people now, just take it as you are diabetic. Because when you tell someone they're borderline, we continue to do the same things that we do. We don't make any changes, At least I did not. I'm not saying others might. But hearing the word borderline, it's like, oh, well, I'm not there. So I continue to eat the same way, go to bed late, and just continue the lifestyle the way I've been going. Right. But once he said to me that, I'm going to have to put you on medication. And I said, is there any other alternatives? Is there any other options that I have? He says, well, the only other thing is for you to lose some weight and watch your diet intake as far as your sugar, even the salt, and your cholesterol level is high, and so everything was against me at that point. And so with that said, he gave me 3 months to show improvement, and if I didn't, then I had to go on medication.
Wow.
And so I went cold turkey. I'm like, I'm stopping everything, and I started doing my exercises. At this point, Jackie, I couldn't even walk up 2 flights of stairs without being out of breath. Knees hurt. Just can't. I couldn't travel in the car without, having the windows open or the air condition on, because I just felt like I could not breathe right, And so all of those things were going on. And so once I started, I went to a dietitian, sat down with a dietitian and a diabetic nurse and a nutritionist. And so they walked me through the process of what I need to go through to improve my lifestyle.
Well, it's really amazing that God would even have me write such a book. I was very surprised when in my prayer time one day, he downloaded to me the book title, Your Morning Routine. And at first I thought he was talking about, the routine that we all go through in the morning when we're getting ready, dressed and all of that. And he said no, and he spelled it out just as you spelled it out. And he said, I really want you to talk with my people about grief, because I need my people to have practical solutions on how to walk through grief and come out on the other side.
Grief is an emotion. It is a normal response to the loss of a person or a thing. We have to be clear that grief does not just occur when someone dies. Grief can occur when you are unable to see someone. Grief can occur when you lose a job, get fired from a job. Grief can occur when a relationship ends. I hate to say it, it can occur even when a relationship begins, depending on what type of relationship it is. But
that's grief, the kind you want to get out real quick.
Absolutely. But grief is a normal emotion. Yeah. It's nothing abnormal, weird, strange about it. You can't fight it. I tell people that if you don't want to grieve, then don't love. It's as simple as that. If you never want to grieve and you say, I just don't want to lose anybody, I got a solution for you. Don't love. That's the only way to avoid grief, is to avoid love. And why it impacts mental health is because grief will damper your ability to know your potential. It will affect your ability to cope with the normal stresses of life. It will cause you to stop working productively and effectively. And if you allow it, it will hinder you from making a contribution to your community.
Folks around in general think that mental illness is a bad name. It's like a bad word. So that is why there's a stigma associated with it. Stigma keeps folks from getting the support they need. It keeps people from speaking out, and there are a lot of bad words thrown around in this world, in the various cultures, and the same words that are thrown around about different cultures are thrown around about people with mental illness. That's just food for thought.
So true.
And so stigma stompers, we want to stomp on everything associated. Negativity associated around a mental illness and all the thoughts, all the speech. And the reason why we want to do that is so folks will have a voice. Folks that have not grown confident as I have will have a voice. Families, and friends, loved ones, anyone who has a person who's personal experience, whatever. And so that's the reason for the name Stigma Stomper. We want to stomp all over stigma.
And I thought about all the times, and I thought about all the bullying in the world and how people get bullied for how small they are, or the color of their skin, or if they're a girl or a boy, or if they're skinny or not skinny. I thought about that, and then after that, I thought about a 0, and I was thinking about numbers, and I thought about how people think 0 is like not, how people think 0 is useless, and think zeros are like they don't do anything, when zeros are very, very powerful, and you wouldn't have any number without 0, really.
Most I like to do landscapes, and that's what I'm like best at. But recently, I've been trying to like expand into like other stuff, like people and like more detailed type things.
Do you like abstracts?
They look nice, but I don't know how to do them that well. But I've done a few abstract art-ish stuff.
In terms of types of art, I know there's oil paintings there, and I don't know them, so we need you to explain.
There's watercolor, there's acrylic, like the main three.
We started almost 20 years ago. We're like in our 19th year long, 20th year. And we started with 2 children at my kitchen table, well, actually my dining table. And it started because I had just come out of college. I was teaching, just volunteering in my son's classroom. And they asked me to stay on. And so I started as an art teacher, traveling from room to room. And in every room that I had about 18 classes a week. And in every one of them, there were 2 to 4 gifted children. And so I said, oh my goodness, I got to do something about this. So I would tell the parents, and they would say, oh, that is great. So what do I do now? Where do I send them? And I'm like, I don't know. So as I searched, there weren't any places, especially not with longevity. You may go to a 4-week or 8-week sessions, and then they're back home. So I couldn't sleep until I started NTC. So we start from 4 to...
So Stripped from Insanity, as you said, is a depiction of some of the events that has taken place in my life. And I decided to, make it into a dramatization because I know there are a lot of people who's dealing with domestic violence. So this was a God thing. I mean, more so than anything. So God gave me this title, Stripped from Insanity, some years ago, and it's based on domestic violence. I went through domestic violence for like 10 years in my life, and I actually moved every year. So I had 10 different addresses.
Wow.
And I constantly kept doing the same thing over, which is insanity. Doing the same thing over, expecting a different result. So going through this and trying to commit suicide to get out of it, that was my answer. Because I keep taking them back, so just feel like I wasn't strong enough to say no. So I was like, I can't deal with this hurt and pain anymore. So I'm just going to just end it all. I wasn't focused on my sons, anything, And so after I got out of the behavioral hospital. People can say it's a mental hospital, but I was there for like a week, and God ministered to me.
I think we can just talk about most recently coming out of the tragedies and the fears of COVID.
Yes.
And our babies, when they were in, say, 4th and 5th graders, over that 2-year mark, they missed the ability to socialize and to understand the ways that they should socialize properly. But also they were exposed to traumas in the home. And those traumas came into our school system. And in addition to that, the adults who may have been experiencing new traumas or a longer period of traumas, and that could look like verbal, physical, emotional violence, sexual violence. We have to look at those things because those things are real. And so what we find is that these students who are coming into our schools have experienced along the entire spectrum. And when they are now coming in our schools in 6th and 7th grade and 8th grade, we're seeing all of those behaviors explode. And they're not able to engage in the education in the classrooms. They're not able to properly socialize because they have high emotions or low emotions, and their behaviors are what's at the forefront. So when you have these things happening, and then you have some of the adults who have experienced the same things, it's like they are re-traumatizing each other. And when this is happening, you have to now say, okay, this is not a Band-Aid situation. This is a situation to where it really is a 911 situation. But now it's a matter of, okay, how do we get them to the trauma center?
Right.
And what are the resources that we need to have for the adult, who's the educator, but also for the child who needs the education? And you cannot educate and you cannot be an educator until you deal with the trauma.
High school looks probably very similar to middle school. With the students that I'm seeing, they kind of brought from middle school into high school. And so if they were having issues or if they experienced trauma as a younger person, they're bringing all of that, plus the quarantine, plus the pandemic, plus the family issues, plus parents getting in the middle of a divorce, plus, a sibling who also has some kind of mental health challenge, all to high school to say, I'm here, I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to manage my anxiety or my depression or my eating disorder or various other things. And sometimes a combination of all three to be able to sit in class.
Right.
And so at the school that I'm at any time of day, you might have a student who has a panic attack in class. You might have a student who says, Dr. McDowell, can I just sit in your office for like 10 minutes? Because I just need to reset. We also have students who are on the autism spectrum. Sometimes walking in the hallway is just too loud for them. We can't announce fire drills or, practice lockdowns and things like that when the alarm goes off. And so they're reacting to that. And so it's a various number of things that are happening. We do have a social worker in the building who is available for students. And so the social worker's role is the therapist, but I also have that support role to check in with students, to kind of see how they're doing, to help them to ground themselves. Some students get nervous just on the way to school every day. And so they need that process of grounding to say, okay, I'm leaving home, I'm going to school, I'm going to be okay, and kind of try to plan out their day.
When I went into the emergency room, and after a few visits, they did a couple tests, and they basically told me like my white blood cells and other things were very low. So they did a biopsy, and they took some tissue out of the lump under my armpit, and they tested it. And that's when I found out I had a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a blood cancer, similar to like leukemia or, other blood cancers. And it starts in your lymphatic system. Okay, when you break down the word like lymphoma, you know, lymphatic lymphoma. So your immune system is your lymphatic system. Your immune system comes from your lymph nodes. So your liver, which regulates like most of the chemical levels in the blood, that also excretes like bile. That's what your liver does. Your kidneys, you know, remove waste and like extra fluid from your body. And they also remove like acid from your body as well. And they kind of watch the balance of water and salts and all of that in your blood. And then your spleen, which is very, 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 very important. That's where like the infection fighting white blood cells are produced. That's the factory they're produced in your spleen. Like your platelets, red blood cells, and all of that. Your spleen filters your blood and all of that. And what it does is it'll take out old blood cells and damaged blood cells and put them into your, you know, your body, while new blood cells are being created throughout your body. So again, we think like, oh, you know, immune system. Let me drink some tea because I got a cold, or let me do this and honey. But if you go a step back further, you'll notice that if your lymphatic system isn't together, then of course your immune system won't be, because that's the same thing. So with me putting two and two together, having lymphoma, I realized my lymphatic system wasn't together. And then after the scans and things came back, my highest concentration of lymphoma were in my kidney, liver areas. So that enabled me to be like, okay. And then I started reading up on stress hormones and things like that, which are also made in your lymphatic system. So your body needs to be, you know, operating rested, healthy, full of vitamins, antioxidants, and nutrients for it to be operating at its optimal level. I've tried to eat mainly plant-based, and just like a lot of water, cleanse. And like I was explaining before, you know, sometimes we're so go, we kind of like forget sometimes. But, you know, the way that our body is set up, and even in the Bible, it tells us, you can kind of tell God wants us to primarily eat vegetables and fruits, you know? And I was having a discussion yesterday. If you notice, like a lion in the jungle has claws and teeth that can rip things to shred and eat them right then and there. The human body isn't really meant to go grab a chicken and eat it on the spot. We got to take it home, cut it up, wash it, and cook it. You can go grab an apple off of a tree and eat it though, and keep going about your business. So it's the reason why we're built like this. But when it comes to lymphoma and even a lot of cancers, a lot of people don't take into consideration, even people that don't have any type of health issue, that our blood is our oil, like a vehicle. And if your oil isn't right, then your vehicle is gonna run weird, just like the human body.